What's up, Philly? What's up, world? Welcome to Philly Famous Podcast. I'm your host, Greg Holdsman. Please follow the podcast on Instagram at Philly Famous Podcast, on Twitter at Philly Famous Pod. You can find all the episodes and everything you need to know about the podcast on our website at phillyfamouspodcast.com, including the 2 TV shows that we've done, one with Aaron McKee and one with Michael Barkan. If you listen on the Apple Podcast app, it would be incredibly appreciated if you could leave a rating and maybe even a review. You can also listen on Spotify, SoundCloud, Google Podcasts, or wherever else you get your listening in. My guest today is a comedian and YouTube star with nearly 600,000 subscribers. He is known online as Ryan's Average Life, and he calls his subscribers the Average Army. I love having conversations with and picking the brains of interesting people doing unique and innovative things in all industry sectors, so while this guest is doing something a little less traditional than most of my previous guests, he certainly fits the criteria of what I look for. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to welcome on prolific vlogger Ryan Abe to Philly Famous Podcast. All right, I want to welcome on Ryan Abe to Philly Famous Podcast. Is that your real name?
Yeah, man, it's quick. It's a quick name.
So where did Ryan's Average Life come from?
Yeah, I mean, the whole concept of Ryan's Average Life was kind of making fun of people on the internet that I think tried to make it seem like their life was perfect, you know? I would like watch these YouTube, channels and these Instagrams, and it just felt like they were portraying this that I'm the best at everything, or, this kind of vibe. And my thing was kind of like, I mean, I'm like a pretty average person, and that's okay. And like, kind of wanted to promote the fact that like, this is just me. Like, this is my life. It's pretty average. Ironically, that has turned into making my life not as average. But that was the whole concept of it, was just, it's okay to be like a normal person. You don't have to be perfect at everything or show or act like you're, this model or something like that.
What constitutes an average life to you?
I think to me it was like, I'm not one that, at least when I made the channel, like that channel like 6 years ago, I didn't go out too much. I'm not like a huge partier, I'm not like, I don't live very lavish or anything like that. I just like I like dogs and sports and the finer
Pretty regular
things.
Dude.
Yeah, finer things in life. But when you think of like YouTubers or influencers, it's always like a cringy term, and you always think of like, Hollywood or, them just blowing their nose with $100 bills and stuff. So, I always tried to want to get away from that because I always felt that was really corny.
Well, it's a catchy opening line. It's, "Hi, Ryan. My life is average."
Yeah. And that just kind of flowed too. Some of the things like that just kind of happened accidentally. I think I said that once the first time, and then someone commented like, "You should just keep that." And I was like, "All right."
That's really you did in every episode, right?
Yeah,
every video.
Every video I've done that since day one, which is interesting. Yeah.
So you're a comedian at heart.
Yeah, in quotes.
In quotes.
Yeah.
Why did YouTube become the medium on which you chose to perform?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of happened on accident. I've always made videos and stuff, even when I was in high school. Right when YouTube was kind of literally launched, I would be making videos for like my mass media class. Little sketches and things like that they would play on the like on the morning news that we would have, and that was always like, I was always excited by hearing the reaction of people, and making some people that I would usually see that are like kind of miserable in my homeroom like laugh. I would always be like, I would look at certain people that I know were like hated school, and then I'd watch to see if they would like find what I made funny, and when they laughed I would be like, all right, that's a good sign, and then the whole thing with YouTube was it started because like of a Soulja Boy song that I thought was atrocious, and I just made a dance on my webcam for it. I put it on my MySpace at the time, which is now dating myself. And then one of my friends was like, you should put it on YouTube. I barely knew what YouTube was. I didn't know even how to upload a video to it. So I looked into it. I figured it out, and somehow 10 years later, I'm still doing it, which is either a good or a bad thing.
How many views did that first video get?
Back then, which was wild, I got 40,000, which was
without any promo or anything.
Yeah, well, because it was alarming because I think when it got 1,000, just I guess based off of like the search of the song, it was called Birdwalk, and I remember I was like, "That's absurd! I'm famous." I was like, I mean, I could just retire now. I mean, you couldn't make money back then. They didn't have a partner program or anything. And then he featured it on his MySpace, which back then was a pretty big deal. And I remember I was like, "This is weird. Why did he do that?" You know, but I guess he got the joke, and then that got it like an extra 30,000, and then it just kept going from there. And back then, 40,000 views was like, even to this day, still good, but that was monumental. I was like, I couldn't believe that happened.
And were parody videos even big back then?
Not really. Like, there was only probably 3 or 4 channels that really did parodies at that time, you know, and then I started a whole parody channel, oddly enough, like 2 years after that, called For Skits and Giggles, where I made probably like 70 or 80 song parodies, and they were great and they were fun to do until like the copyright laws and things really started going crazy, and Sony would email me like, "Take this down or else," and that kind of got me out of that, which was what led me to my Ryan's Average Life channel, because I was doing literally song parodies for like almost 4 years.
You still think Soulja Boy's trash?
I mean, I kind of owe him my career a little bit, but I mean, you know, he's not great.
No, that particular song.
Oh, it was terrible. It was a terrible. Do you ever hear the song Birdwalk?
Oh, I don't know why in my mind
you
were
Cranked That?
Yeah, I don't know why. In my mind I had you parodying
Cranked
that.
That is a classic.
Yeah.
And I would never talk bad about that song. No, it was called Birdwalk. It was terrible.
Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. Yeah.
Soulja Boy has some bangers.
No,
but
Crank That and Pretty Boy Swag.
Kiss Me Through the Phone's a hit.
Yep.
But yeah, no, that song, the Birdwalk one was bad, and the dance was like, he looked like a seagull having a seizure, and it was just terrible. So that's why I clowned it a bit back then.
So how do you explain to older people what it is that you do?
I mean, it's taken me 10 years to get my dad to even understand it, so I don't know. When you tell someone you do videos, usually their mind goes somewhere else. You have to quickly tell them, like, it's okay, relax, it's comedy. I guess it's like, it's just entertainment, really. It's just a new form of entertainment. You know, it's no different than it was back in the day, except now it's just on video and uploaded to the internet. But like I said, I've never loved the term influencer, because it always seems like it comes with a bad notion of like somebody that's just spoiled or something. But you know, I guess the concept of that is like, you have an audience and you can influence other people with your opinion. And I mean, that's pretty close to what it is. I like to make videos when I'm feeling, you know, a right headspace about topics that I think need to be, you know, brought out to the world, whether it's about a Logan Paul situation or just something that I think is just cringy and needs to be called out. You know, I like to put like a comedic spin on it. So I guess just a new media entertainer is kind of really what it is.
So you have a balance of like current event videos,
Yeah,
and just whatever you're feeling.
Yeah, I think you got to like keep it. You got to do things that people at least understand what you're talking about sometimes, you know, because you don't want too many inside jokes. Especially if you want new people to come in, you want to bring in people that are looking for a topic that's already out there. It's easier that way. It's just, you know, that's how you should do it. But there's some times where I'll talk about something that's a little more, you know, niche than broad. But I really I'll make a video about anything if I find the right humor in it. You know, if I think I can put my own spin on it, I'll make a video about anything, honestly.
You mentioned a few minutes ago that you are making money off of this. How?
Well, with YouTube, it's just been the same for a while, just through ads where, you know, every time you view a video, there's an ad on it. You get a certain amount of, you know, every per 1,000 clicks and things, you get a certain percentage. It's not insane, but the big one is brand deals. You know, like if you just came up with a new soft drink and you're trying to get people to drink it, you might hit up a network and say, hey, how many people are in your network? Oh, there's about 50. Okay, here's our budget. Could we have 10 of them that you think would, you know, be clever and good enough to promote my new soft drink? And they would say, yeah, sure. These are the 10 people we have in mind. And then you would, you know, say, this is what we want you to do. You can do the rest. This is what the pitch that we kind of have given you. And then you kind of make the presentation for them. And, you know, that's really how a lot of YouTubers make money, is with the brand deals these days. That's like the big chunk of money.
What do you mean by network?
Well, basically, almost like there's an NBC 10. There's networks on YouTube, like a full screen or a big frame.
Are you in a network?
Yeah.
What's it called?
It's called Setabello Entertainment. It's my manager's new network. He just started it like about 3 months ago.
Okay.
But yeah, so you'll have like usually anywhere from 20 to 1,000 people under a certain network. And then that's where your manager will pick a certain, like, I'm not going to do a video based off of like a new hair dye or something, because I'm a guy, I don't do that. But like if he comes to me and says, a brand says we are doing SeatGeek for a Sixers game, that's perfect.
It's a very popular podcast sponsor as well.
SeatGeek?
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
huge.
SeatGeek is killing it with
Yeah.
YouTube. SeatGeek's awesome. Hit them up.
ZipRecruiter, all that.
Exactly. But yeah, so like it's just like that. They'll go through a network, and then that manager will say, here's the group of people that I think will be perfect for your, for what you're trying to pitch, and then you kind of distribute the funding, per what their asking prices and stuff like that. It's a lot more complicated than it used to be. It used to be no brand deals, and it used to just be like, if you had 1 million views, you'd make about $1,000, something like that. Or now, based off of what network you're on, you could have a higher ad rate and you make more money than someone on another one. And, if you curse in your video, you're going to have worse ads than somebody who is opening slime. That's just the way it is. Now, we're back in the day, the system wasn't that smart. It was just kind of like, you all get kind of the same ads. Now it's totally different. But a lot of like creators, rely heavily on touring, brand deals, and then merchandising is always really important.
So is everything that comes with YouTube, is that your only source of income?
I also do writing on the side. So I'll do some writing for some YouTubers and things like that. And then, merchandising is it really all falls into the same category, if you will, but YouTube's like
off of your image.
Correct. 100%. Yeah. Merchandising makes me probably like a third of my income.
How many subscribers did it take you to get before you could make this all that you're doing?
I think when I hit like 100,000 years ago, when I started,
that's financially sustainable
on my parody channel. Yeah, I worked at Best Buy, so I was making more doing that than I was making money at Best Buy. So at that point, I was like, I gave it like 2 months or so, and I was like, okay, like, I think I'm good now, and if not, I'll just go back to, I was like, I'll just go back if not.
So how important has social media been for you?
I mean, it's crazy because, I always thought social media was going to be super prevalent. I remember back in the day, I remember telling my roommate, like, I think you're going to get all your news through Twitter. And he would like kind of like laugh at me because it was like 2010. I always had a weird feeling that it was just going to be like the only thing people were on. And that's why it worked out, because I was on Twitter since 2009 and stuff like that. So I was able to kind of slowly build instead of trying to jump into it now where you may be like overwhelmed. But, social media is so important, almost too important, to be honest, in today's society, especially with the youth. Like, that scares me sometimes.
Yes.
My cousins are like 6 and they're asking me all these questions about Instagram. And I'm like, oh man, like, it's just too young in my opinion, but that's just the way it's going, unfortunately for them. But everybody wants to be famous these days.
How much pressure do you feel to continually kind of boost your following on social media, continue producing content to, get subscribers?
So much pressure. I'm the worst to talk about that because like I only upload like a YouTube video every 3 months sometimes because there's a lot of pressure, especially like I almost wish that I was like a tech guy and I could be like, oh, a new computer's out, I'm going to talk about it. Or to me, like I kind of cornered myself into the sarcastic comedy thing, and if I'm not feeling funny, it's really tough to want to make a full video. And then there's so many times, even in the last 2 months, I've made 3 videos. I didn't post any of them because like I would edit it, I would watch it, and I'd be like, this is terrible. And it probably wasn't terrible, but I'm really hard on myself. And when I don't like something, I just won't post it. A lot of YouTubers are the opposite. They'll post everything.
Well, sometimes to stay relevant, you have to just pump out content.
Right, which I never have liked to do because I've always felt quality is better than quantity. And I think in the long run, that always wins. In my opinion, I think slow and steady kind of does work as long as you are not, you can't just not do something for a whole year. But the interesting thing about the internet is like, I could not post a video on YouTube for 3 months, but it's okay because I'm so active on Instagram or Twitter that everybody still knows I'm there. I'm still constantly in their mind. And then if I upload a video, that's like a bonus, which is why Twitter and stuff has been such a big key for me, big tool, is because it kind of allows me to still tell jokes, still say things that are funny, in my opinion, and remain in their headspace. So they're not just like, who are you? because irrelevancy is such a scary word in society now. Everybody's so scared of being irrelevant after you've gotten a following. You know, it's like a big deal. People get very, very, like, a lot of anxiety for it.
You mentioned before we started the podcast that you're making a lot of your money off of Twitter,
Yeah.
not just YouTube ads.
Yeah, I mean, Twitter, other social media sites, Twitter, Instagram, and stuff, like, there's a really big diehard following on there, because I feel like you subscribe to somebody on YouTube, that's one aspect, but then if you go the extra mile and you start trying to follow them on other platforms like Twitter, and then you turn on their notifications for every tweet, you start getting people that really, really want to know what you're talking about. Not just someone that, like, oh, you collabed with somebody on YouTube, I subscribed because I thought it was funny type thing. And, you know, when I look at, like, when I do merchandising and, like, I sell, like, clothing for my brand, like, it's about 80% of my sales come from Twitter itself, which is surprising. You would think it would come from Instagram, you'd think YouTube, but it's like, for me, Twitter has been that diehard place to where people really support, which is nice. So I always tell people it's so important to branch out into other categories, not just if you want to be a YouTuber, you have to be understanding the other platforms, because they're just as important, if not more important.
Is your public image on YouTube, social media, are you in character, or is that your genuine self?
I think every single human being that uploads something is in some sort of character, because it's hard not to turn on a camera, stare at it, and edit yourself and not be a little bit heightened in a way. But I would say 95% myself. And sometimes you have to embellish something a little bit just to add something to it. But I've made a lot of serious videos about, like, you know, depression and suicide and things like that, where, of course, I'm 100% speaking from my heart and stuff like that. But yeah, if there's a video where I'm eating like the spiciest nacho in the world, I might be even though it's probably killing me because ketchup is hot to me, I might be embellishing a bit, because no one wants to see someone eat a chip and go, yeah, that's good. You know, you have to sometimes. It's entertainment value.
And your range of videos is huge.
Yeah, and that's why I like that about myself, at least, is because at least I feel like I can hopefully make somebody laugh and then make them think and maybe make them cry, and not in a bad way. But, like, I like being able to, you know, branch out a little bit and, like, get serious if I need to. When I go to, like, different events, I like to, like, be on panels that talk about mental health and stuff. I think that's just as important than just making somebody laugh. But it's a nice balance. Like, it's a necessary balance. If you're constantly funny all the time, it's tiring, you know, because sometimes people just, I don't know if you've ever had a friend that never could get serious, and sometimes you just want to be like, hey, can we just, like, chat about something, like, for real?
Just for a second.
Right. And they're like, eh, and you're like, no, stop. You know, like, I think some YouTubers don't have that switch. They're just constantly like the Energizer Bunny, and sometimes it's nice to have creators, there's a lot of them, that are able to shut off and then be like, let's talk about this. Let's talk about something real and serious. And I think that's really important.
When did your interest in mental health start? Before YouTube?
Yeah, for sure. I lost my mom when I was 16, and I remember comedy was really big back then. But it's weird because when I was 16, I didn't know what anxiety was. I didn't know what depression was. It sounds silly, but the internet and stuff has really normalized that a lot, which is great. But I didn't even know really what I had. I was just really sad all the time and would stay in my room and stuff. And I would always, you know, just comedy, like stand-up specials. And before he was hated, like Dane Cook and stuff, like things like that would really make me be like, okay, I'm feeling better. And I would always tell myself, like, I need to eventually do this to help other people that are going through what I am in, like, dark times. And then once I finally started getting, like, a following where people were listening, I immediately started basically making videos about that, because I felt like it was so important, because there were a lot of people that were like me and, like, honestly didn't even know that they had anxiety, or they might not want to talk about it to people, and they didn't know what they had. And, you know, throughout the years, it's been nice to have people come up and say, like that one video you made, like, I made a video about my mom and how she passed away, and, like, kind of just giving honest, brutal tips about getting over death and not sugarcoating it, because I wish that I had that when I went through it. And, like, that video over any video ever has resonated the most.
Was it the one where you were reading the book that your mom gave you?
Yeah, the regrets one. Yeah, because I talk about like regrets and stuff in it, and things, and very personal, like what she wrote to me and stuff. And, like, I just think sometimes I like to show how I think vulnerability is really important on the internet. It's okay to like show who you are.
Absolutely.
And it's so much easier for someone in your audience or that follows you to really understand you when they go, oh, okay, you know what? Like, they can almost feel like they can breathe too. You know, I think that's important instead of just not being sure who you are. They just know like, okay, this guy is telling the truth. And I think there's a sense of calming for some people, which I think is important.
So comedy helped you cope with depression.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I mean, definitely had some times where I was like, man, I don't know what the heck's going on in my brain, but I don't know what the heck am I doing? And, you know, and I just would remember like there'd be days where like a big person was Bo Burnham, where like I would be really sad about something. And then I would just like watch a Bo Burnham video because he was one of the first YouTubers, and I would just like you I don't know if you have those moments where like you're sick or you're upset, but you kind of catch yourself in a good moment and you're like, you remind yourself like, okay, that feels nice, like that can happen, and sometimes you need that reminder of like, all right, there's like a little bit of a light there. And like, so Bo Burnham was like really big for that for me, and that's why I wanted to be that light for somebody else. And that sounds corny, I'm sure everyone says it, but like genuinely, like someone like Bo Burnham like helped save my life. If I have even 1% of an impact on somebody else's, why would I not want to do it?
And that experience had a lot to do with the birth of your YouTube
100%
channel.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think if I didn't lose my mom, I don't think I would be sitting here. I don't think I would have been a YouTuber. I don't think I would have had that incredible desire to like just want to like make people laugh and entertain. I don't know if it would be there. I mean, I don't know.
How do you think your relationship to that tragedy has, changed over time?
Well, that's a good question. Back when it first happened, if you would ask me about it when I was 16 or 17, I probably wouldn't have said a word. Now I'll talk about it on a podcast, so like sometimes you just have to talk about something enough to where you finally feel free of it, to where you actually can comprehend it. Because a lot of people, including myself, will block things out, completely, try to act like it doesn't exist anymore. And I've always just tried to be like, okay, like, I'm just going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it to people. And then once you open yourself up to millions of people, it kind of, there's like almost like a tension that's kind of lifted, because you feel like, okay, I'm at peace with this, and this may have happened, and maybe it's helping other people now, and like that story, or, knowing what my mom went through and like, talking about to other people, if that can help anyone, like that, for me, like that's a good thing. Like that's a reason why it may have happened, and you got to take the positives from it. You have to, or else it'll just tear you down if you don't.
Also, that authenticity on the internet, it's probably also a great way for you to build a relationship with your subscribers. Not to take the seriousness out of what you're saying.
No, that's so important. I mean, it's like I said, like let's say if I was an account where like I tweet, but I only tweet nothing but one-liners constantly. Like, yeah, that may do well. Maybe one or two may go viral, but am I really going to have people that genuinely care about me? Probably not. They're just going to be like, where's the funny joke? So there's a nice balance of like, that was a funny tweet. This is an appreciation tweet. This is an honesty. Like, you just need that balance sometimes for people to really appreciate you as a person, and not just the performer or the character or the social media guy, like just as like a human being. That's the biggest thing. That's why I try to tell people that like want to do this is like relatability is more important than just, oh, pizza's great. It's deeper than that. You can be relatable to deeper things, and it doesn't just have to be comedy based.
Do you take subscriber feedback and comments to heart?
It depends. You have to a little bit, but it just depends on how, like, let's say I make a video and like the lighting's terrible or something, and 90 comments are saying, fix your lighting. Yeah, you're going to fix your lighting. But like, if you have one comment, or let's say someone tweets you about the podcast and says, I don't like your voice, or, cause you'll get that, or I don't like the jeans you're wearing. Well, okay. Like that. So it depends. If it's a critique that's genuinely, I remember when I first started doing YouTube, I did way too many jump cuts, and people would say, this is good. Just, my God, the jump cuts. and okay, fair point. And you learn that way, but you can tell between someone that's being critical in a way that they're trying to help, and then critical in the way where they're trying to just tear you down. And you got to know the difference between the two and not take them personally.
What's the harshest comment you've ever gotten?
Oh my God. What's good about me is that I don't take things as personal, especially now, than I used to. But when I first started, I don't even, back in the day, I guess I had bad teeth. I didn't know that. I had like a gap. No one ever mentioned it, really. I knew it was there. I'm not, but like, I remember one day someone was like, fix your effing teeth, Michael Strahan. And I was like, oh crap, is it that bad? And I like looked up a picture of Michael Strahan because and I was like, oh boy. And like, I remember I thought about that for like a month. I got braces, of course, like the year after that. I just never thought it was an issue. But I mean, people, when I made a video about the thing with my mom, people would say, I'm glad that happened.
Oh,
but that, like, to me, that's like, come on. Like, you almost gotta laugh and be like, man, good. My guy, I would comment and be like, I will pray for you. Like,
well, do you read all the comments?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, I like to read the comments right when I post anything, whether it's a tweet, an Instagram, a video. The first 20 minutes are the best comments because those are the people that really want to know this stuff. It's tough to keep up after that sometimes. Like if a video kind of goes viral or something, you're just going to get hit with a lot of filth. But as someone that likes comedy, you take from that. Like you take the people that are mean or being rude, you got to find humor in that stuff because there is humor in it. And if you don't find humor in it, it'll, like you said, it'll tear you down. But you just got to like make light of it and be like, man, like maybe they're a Lions fan, maybe they like the Pistons. I don't know why I singled out Detroit there. I'm sorry. But, you just never know what they're going through. So
I've always been really interested in this. So on Instagram, you have like 120,000 followers.
Uh-huh.
And so you reached out to me, but when I wrote back to you, like, so I'm assuming you have tons of DMs.
Yeah.
How do people in your position with a celebrity level following, how do you parse out which ones to reply to and all that?
You just have to look. I mean, but like I've always been the type that like I've never liked people that have gotten a following and then suddenly will not do anything unless that person has a bigger following than them. And there is a lot of people out there like that. Not everybody, but a lot of people. So I always like to reach out to people, and whether they have one follower or a million, but like, I really like your stuff. That was enjoyable. I think that's so important, just to give people like a pat on the back so they go like, okay, maybe I'm doing something right. But to answer your question, yeah, I mean, you got to have selective vision sometimes, right. But you also know, you could tell from the first message, the first word, what the message is going to be about. If I see something that says, hey, Ryan, I'll click it. If it's just like a bunch of crazy emojis or, a random picture, I'm like, probably may not click that.
So if I wrote to Joel Embiid on Instagram and my first word was, hey, Joel, you think he would?
No, because you're not a hot girl. I think Joel Embiid, now if you put like a hot girl as your picture, you might go there. I think an NBA player and a YouTuber are a whole different levels.
That's funny.
But I don't think he would respond. But he also probably has 10 times the followers I have, so you just never know.
So what's the recipe to becoming a YouTube star?
Jeez.
Is there one?
I don't know if there's a set one. You'll burn the kitchen down if you try too much, I think. But like, I think the big thing is I've always said this, and like, people always think it's a bad thing when I'll say it. Is like, you have to have a little bit of an ego, and ego is not always a bad thing. Ego doesn't mean you're a terrible person. It just means like you're okay with editing yourself constantly. And like the concept of a YouTuber and even podcasting is funny. Like you're recording yourself talking for an hour and you're like, here you go, internet. It's a funny concept.
I feel you have to like yourself in some way.
You have to think that you have something that you can give to somebody.
Something something meaningful to say.
Right. Because if you don't think you have something of value, whether it's for entertainment or or just teaching, what's the point? You're just going to be blabbing. So I think the recipe is, you have to understand yourself and like what you want to talk about. And you have to be okay with literally uploading it to the world and understanding that like what if this gets 10 million views? Will I be okay? Like, will I be able to handle this? And like, you just have to have the mental capacity to be ready if something does happen. And for a lot of people, it doesn't, but if it does, you got to be ready for it because it's not easy to tackle.
We're going to take a quick break because I want to talk to you guys about Saxby's. In September, I did an episode with the founder and CEO of Saxby's, Nick Bayer, and have since become a huge fan of their culture, their mission, and of course, their coffee. Saxby's strives to not only meet guest expectations, but exceed them. This holiday season, try their festive dark chocolate peppermint mocha latte, the perfect treat to fuel your holiday shopping. Speaking of holiday shopping, Did you know each time you order a gift card for $30 or more, you'll get a $5 gift from Saxby's? It's their way of spreading the holiday cheer. Visit any of their cafes or their merch store at saxbyscoffee.com to learn more. Now, back to Ryan. Is there a story you're trying to tell?
I don't know. My thing has always been, I guess I've taken the approach of like just the human aspect of things, of like, I just want people to know that, like, you know, just because somebody has a following, they're still a human being. You know, just because they may have a higher stature doesn't change anything. And I try to make myself as basic as I can and as stripped down as I can. And I guess my story would be like, everybody is like, it's so corny, but it's true. Like, I know so many famous people, and I've hung out with all these people, and a lot of them are so boring. And then you see them on, you know, the news or Instagram, and you might be a 12-year-old girl and go, that's the most perfect person in the world, because they make themselves seem perfect. And I think I wish more creators made themselves just who they are. It's okay. You'll have girls that'll say, just be yourself to these 12-year-olds, but then they just got their whole face, you know, surgery done on their face, and their whole entire picture is face tuned, and there's 20 filters. So it's like, it's hypocritical to me, you know, like, you're going to tell someone to be yourself, but then you're not yourself. And I think it's so important for people just to understand, like,
Reality is so blurred.
oh my God, it's filtered, literally filtered.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important to just show people, like, take a deep breath, and it's okay to show who you really are. I like wrestling. I'll tweet about wrestling. I have a big shelf of wrestling action figures. I have them on display. My friends are like, what if a girl comes over? I'm like, I don't care. I like this stuff. I like my Eagles poster, and I don't care. And I think that's so important, because so many people care so deeply about their persona on the internet. And then when you meet them, you're like, geez, that's not even this. You're not the same person. What is going on here? And it's a weird feeling. It feels like very disingenuine.
So in the last 6 or so years, how has the art of YouTubing changed, and how has your particular channel changed?
YouTube is so different. I mean, even 7 years ago seems like an eternity. It's like dog years. But back then, back also, especially years ago, and you'll see it with like sports players, their tweets, they'll come up and people be like, how could they say these things? Like, it was a different world kind of, and it's hard to explain, but like, it was like the wild, wild west on YouTube. I mean, you could really say whatever you wanted. You could do whatever you wanted. There was really no filter back in the day. And
in terms of just copyright,
and just whatever you said, you know, like, you could curse and do whatever, and your ads are the same, and you could make, like, it just seemed like it was a whole different space, where now you have to be careful, and if you want to make money off your video, you need to bleep your curses.
So it's pretty highly regulated.
It's very regulated now. I mean, they have the automatic stuff where you can just put like a couple seconds of a song and it just knows, and it's like, that never existed. So it was so much easier back then to get away with things technically, but now it's technically easier to get noticed. And I always don't like the thing where it's like, well, it's too late to be someone on YouTube or be a podcaster or something, because there already are thousands of them. That's a very bad mentality, because the podcasting and the whole YouTube, that whole community just keeps growing, and it's not going to stop growing.
You think it's easier to get noticed now?
Yeah, I
even
think so.
with influx of everybody that's YouTubing and,
yeah,
and
because
podcasting?
I think now there's more examples of what to do and what not to do. There's definitely more eyes. I can't tell you how many more eyes on YouTube there are now than 7 years ago, but I'm sure it's an unfathomable number. And I think that, like with podcasting too, let's say you tried to do a podcast 7 years ago, there was really nothing to base it off of, right? You may have been like, I don't know what the heck to do. But through listening to podcasts for years, you probably kind of already knew how to do podcasting. And I think it's the same with YouTube. Like, if you've watched YouTubers for a long time, you probably have a decent idea of like how to do it now, which is different than years ago, because there wasn't really much to go off.
Did you have anybody to learn from?
Not really, no. I mean, I self-taught myself how to edit. I self-taught everything about camera equipment, because when I started in 2008, like, there weren't really a lot of tutorials back then about editing and camera stuff and things, and if they were very basic.
Are you still a one-man crew?
Yeah, when I did parodies, I used to have like 3 or 4 of my friends do it, but I've never been able to have someone else edit my videos. I'm really meticulous in like what I want to take out.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of creators can relate to that. It's just this weird thing, and I almost like, it's like a nice, relaxing thing to edit sometimes, because you're in your own pace, your own control of it. So
I feel the same way with with podcasting.
Yeah, it's just some people are different. Some people don't want to edit at all. It just changes for the person.
So if YouTube shuts down, then what?
I mean, I would just continue doing what I'm doing. What's funny is I think my dad asked me that in 2009. And I was like, I don't know. We'll see in 5 years. And then 5 years, and then I feel like 5 years is going to go by again. I don't think it's going to shut down. But if it did, something else would start up, which is crazy about the internet. Vine was the biggest thing ever. Then it died.
Yep.
YouTube's still chilling, which is nice. But Twitter is so prevalent, and Instagram. And I've never been a Facebook guy because it's such a cesspool at times. And I think a lot of Facebook comedy is really just, there's no thought into it. It's just very like, here's a butt and something punchline, and I hate that. But yeah, I would just keep doing Twitter and stuff, and something else, like I said, something would come up. Somebody would take advantage of this monopoly that is now gone, and they would run amok with it, and I'd be all over it.
How many videos do you have?
I don't know. It's funny. I don't know. I mean, total ever, honestly, probably 2,000, because I tried so many things when I first started. I would do video responses to videos. I would do current event stuff. I would do sports. I did wrestling videos. I did the parodies. I would say like thousands at this point.
So has there been a point in those 2,000 videos that you've thought about stopping or quitting?
Every time I upload. No, honestly, I just I'll take my time now at things, but I don't think you have to be dramatic and just stop, And I don't think you should ever announce that you're stopping. I think that's where people make a mistake. People will say I'm going to take a 3-month break. I've never given myself a time limit, because then if I say I'm going to take a month break and then it's a month, then I have pressure. I think people put too much pressure on themselves with anything, whether it's, anything in social media. So I think that as long as you make yourself prevalent in other areas, like I said, on social media, you can give yourself a break and relax, and you can change your content and feel like you're doing something that you want to do. I think it is so important. So, it's just always been my thing.
I read in 2010 that your channel was shut down for unknown reasons.
Yeah, well, it was a known reason. It was such a good video. I was so mad about it. I made a UFC parody, where me and my friends were acting like UFC fighters, like George St. Pierre and stuff like that. And they UFC just destroyed my channel. They just took the video down, striked it hard, and I already had a copyright strike from MTV for a Jersey Shore parody that I did, and that was that. So you're technically not supposed to have another YouTube channel when you suspended. But when I knew some of the people at YouTube at the time, and I emailed them, and they allowed me to make a new channel, which was the parody channel that I made. But I was so upset about that, because it was a really funny video. It wasn't nothing bad about the UFC, but just because it was in the title, they took it down, removed it.
But you probably had to feel good that UFC noticed you.
That was cool. I mean, it would have been cool if they commented something.
Yeah.
And I could have screenshotted it. But, it wasn't like Brock Lesnar himself took it down. That would have been cool, or Dana White. But I was pretty devastated. But things like that, genuinely happened for a reason. You just don't know it at the time. And then, the next thing happens because of it. But, I know what's funny is I still love the UFC, but I was I'm never watching a UFC event again after that. And I've probably watched 100, so they get the last laugh.
Well, you mentioned that you have a relationship with some people at YouTube. Is that the case for most big YouTubers?
Yeah, you definitely, it's not like I have a cell phone that I can just call a direct line, but you have certain emails that you have, or through your management or agencies and stuff like that. Everybody has some sort of contact. And you get a certain email. When you hit a certain amount of subscribers after a while, it's not as hard to get in contact with somebody than it is if you're just starting out, obviously. But yeah. Most of the bigger YouTubers have some sort of direct line.
Have you collaborated with other big YouTubers?
Yeah.
Is that 100%. Important?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's good and bad about it. It helps you get eyes on your channel when you collab with somebody, of course, and subscribers.
Promo.
But then the problem with that is sometimes those people will subscribe in hopes of watching that same person with you every time. So you'll see that let's say you did a podcast and you did one with Allen Iverson, and suddenly you're this got 5,000, 10,000 viewers. This is great. They might not be super pumped that your next one is a random high school coach, and it might get 100 views, and then Then you do another one, Allen Iverson, it gets 5,000 again. Like, that can be frustrating because you're like, well, the high school coach was really good and had great information, but people just will wait until Iverson comes on again. And that's the problem with anything, especially YouTube. I've collaborated with channels with like 10 million subscribers. Of course, when that happens, they're like, who's this guy? I want to see more of the person that I know. And that can be, it's like a double-edged sword.
No, I've thought about that because, like, you know, I'm close, or I hope at some point I'm going to get Rasheed Wallace on the podcast.
Of course.
And
you going to tee him up?
well, it'll be great. I mean, it'll be a legendary episode, and I can't wait. But I realized that, you know, I'm thinking about how I'm going to promote that episode and how I'm going to get all these listeners, but they're going to be disappointed when the next guest, like you said, is not going to be a Rasheed Wallace type of celebrity.
Yeah, and you just have to accept that. Like, I think the big thing with that has always been you just can't take it personally because you have to. That's where being humble is really important. You have to humble yourself constantly. And when stuff like that happens, you know, you feel like you're the man for a bit, you know, like let's say Sheed comes on and people are like dapping you up everywhere. Greg, man, like you got Rasheed Wallace. That may not happen the interview after it, but like you just got to remember how cool the high was and be like, okay, it's all good. Like, the reality check is important sometimes. And I've gotten that reality check. I remember one time I had a crazy month. I think I gained like 70,000 subscribers. And I was like, well, clearly 70,000 people are going to now watch this next video. You would think they just subscribed. And I think my video after that only got like an extra 5,000 views. And that's when I was like, okay, it's all a game. You just you never know what to expect, and you just got to accept it and just not take it personal.
So what's your ultimate goal with all this? Do you have a vision?
Yeah, I mean, like, I really like the writing aspect I found. I'm always doing writing constantly. I have so many ideas for skits and scripts and things that I'm just constantly writing down. I would love to do more behind the scenes stuff eventually. I do like being on camera. I like acting. I've done series stuff. I've done some acting gigs, but like I enjoy the process of like the behind the scenes work. Like I said, of like writing, watching it come to fruition, watching people, you know, say something that you wrote. I've always enjoyed.
You like the creating of it.
100%. Yeah. So I think down the line, you know, I would also love, like, let's say one day a company comes to me and says like, we would love you to help us with our social media. Like if a decent company was like, we need help here, I would love to do that. You know, like help a company like get on their feet or like branch out a bit and be a little more relatable, because some companies are really good at it. Some companies are so out of touch with what to say to the people that follow them. And I think that's something I would do as well. But, you know, the internet's such a crazy place because so much can change in 1 year. You just don't know. You just have to be on your toes. And I think that's what's exciting about the internet as well. There's not many jobs that one day you're here and the next week you could be on top. That doesn't exist really anywhere. But on the internet, you're just one post, tweet, podcast, anything away from something going huge and changing your life. I think that's why so many people do what they do, because they're waiting for that moment of like, God, I saw it happen to so many people. When's it gonna happen to me?
How do you like being your own boss?
It's good and it's bad. I'm so lazy sometimes. It's weird because I'm not a lazy person, and I'm like a perfectionist with things, but like I almost wish I had someone to yell at me. Like when I first started, when like no one cared about me, that's when I tried so hard. And then once you get to a certain point where you're like doing okay and you don't need it, it's easy to forget that like, hey, you should probably do some things, you know. It's nice to sleep in and play some Fortnite sometimes, but you know, there are definitely times where I'm like, I need to get up and create, because my mind just kind of doesn't know what to do if I haven't thought of anything funny in a day or so. It kills me.
So I generally ask all my guests that if there was a movie made about their life, what's the one scene that absolutely has to be in it for people to fully understand who you are? But you've already mentioned a pretty powerful scene, and that would be your mother's death. Is there anything else that comes to mind?
That's a good question. I feel like that would be part of the scene. I think the scene would probably be me like on my floor, like the day after that happened with my lights off. Like, just like, that's the most I never had felt like being numb before, if that makes sense. And that was the first time I remember I was like, I sat on my floor for like 2 hours and I didn't think about anything. It was the weirdest thing. I didn't even process any thoughts. And I remember thinking like after that, like the next day I was like, man, what a weird place that was. Like, I didn't like that at all. And I think like striving to not want to keep going back to that mental place where like I felt like I don't know what was going on was important to me. I think that'd be a pretty powerful scene to say the least. And hopefully Ryan Gosling could play it for me. He would do me a solid. That'd be nice.
Yeah, on your Instagram bio, it says, what's it say? It says
Off-brand
Ryan Gosling.
Yeah, I've always gotten that connection. Look like him, and just being that my name is Ryan. But I always like one day I want to meet him. And be like, I'm so sorry that we look alike. I apologize.
So he would play you in the movie about Ryan.
I mean, no, but I would like if I was.
That's your ideal.
Oh yeah, it'd be hilarious. That would be like a full circle thing.
So it would be a comedy, the movie.
Almost like kind of like how my whole brand is of like some of it's funny, some of it's not, some of it's serious, but. Yeah, it'd be partly a comedy. I think you got to take life, like, can't take life too seriously, or else too much will go wrong. Honestly,
Yes.
that's
So-
how I am as a Philadelphia sports fan too. I have to think that all the time.
So you grew up in Philly.
Yeah.
How did growing up here influence who you are?
Super heavily. I think that, and I'm sure you can relate. I think growing up on the East Coast, especially in an area like Philadelphia, you have tough skin because you have to. Or else things will just pass by you. You know, I grew up pretty much dirt poor almost, and you know, I'm very thankful for the things that I have now. And I grew up in a school where like, yeah, I just played basketball every day, and you know, went home and played sport. I immersed myself in the Philadelphia sports culture.
What school?
And
Sorry to cut you off.
Spruance, which was like a K through 9. One of those just giant schools where they dump people in. Still there. And yeah, so I think like for me it was always important to just immerse myself in like just the East Coast and Philadelphia as a whole. And it always like it shaped me to be somebody that's like I could take criticism because I am someone that like I get it. Like I like the honesty. I like even when I was younger, I remember like my relatives and people around me, they're just really honest. I think East Coast people are just honest to each other, sometimes too honest, but I think it's important to not sugarcoat things. And,
Tell it like it is.
Yeah, and I think that's what this, like especially New York and stuff, that's what that's known for. So it shaped me because I feel like I have tough skin. I could take a joke. And I think when you grow up without a lot of things sometimes, like when my shoes, like it really does just make you appreciate the smaller things, which I think is important sometimes because you need to take a step back sometimes and just like look. I think it's key.
Well, if you appreciate all that about the East Coast and about Philly, it makes sense that you don't want to go to LA. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's the complete opposite.
Yeah, I think LA moves. It's weird because it's not fair to say, like, I don't like to say like everyone in LA is the same because I have a lot of friends in LA and I don't know a lot of people in LA that work so hard and work their butts off. But like, there is also the other side of LA where it's like it is so nice there, and like people are, you don't know who is real and who is not sometimes. And like you'll go to a bar and people will just say ask for your Instagram and not your name, which is so weird. It's
so
like
weird.
you're in Westworld or you're in like a Black Mirror episode, you know? And that part of it to me, I'll always just be like, because I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, and they'll be like, what? Like, you'll freak people out there if you're honest. But I haven't liked that vibe of like stature means everything. Because if you just like walk around there, everybody has on like $1,000 outfit. And if you don't, you really do get judged. It's not even like you won't get into a club. You won't get into a certain bar. It's sad, but it's true. That's just how it is.
What I've heard is that same genuine, authentic stuff that you get in Philly, whether it's and people are going to tell you the truth, whether it's going to hurt or whether it's going to feel good, is the opposite in LA. It's everything's fake, everything's manufactured, everything's a business pitch.
Well, yeah, because you know, LA, there a lot of people, especially people that grow up there, their whole thing is like, hey, you never know who's going to make it. So like, you're just going to butter everybody up because then if you did, you can tie your loose ends and be like, but remember when we talked and can I be in your movie? You know, and that's like a big thing there is like, it's all about connections and just, it's a social climb. Really. It's just a giant social climb.
So what's your favorite thing about Philly?
Nick Foles last year. No.
Are we making the playoffs?
Oh man, that would happen. That would happen. I'm going to say no, only because I think the Seahawks will win, and then we won't get the final wild card. But
Well, the Vikings though, they could lose.
yeah, but we have that. They had the tiebreaker because we lost to them,
right?
and they have the tie, which is kind of weird. So that kind of hurts our chances.
No, they would have to lose their
They
next.
play the Bears, don't they? I think the Vikings.
They would
play
have
the
to lose
Bears.
the next two games.
Yeah, It's definitely possible. That would be the funniest thing for the Eagles to make the playoffs this year, because after that Cowboys loss, I was so pissed off. And of course, Nick Foles comes in and beats the Rams, because why wouldn't Nick Foles come in and beat the Rams?
If we make the playoffs and if we win just one game,
yeah. Oh,
Foles should get a statue.
I would say, I think it would be cool just to make the playoffs, because
statue if we make the playoffs.
Oh yeah, because even like just being 6 and 7 and then this team making the playoffs would be so cool in my opinion. It would be like kind of inspiring to kids, because like the Super Bowl champions, then they were dogged on all year, and then like they came back and stuff. You know, that would be great. Honestly, like my favorite thing at Philly of all time is Allen Iverson. Everything in Philly, like I don't know about you, but like I hate the cheesesteak thing because I love him, but like that's all you get asked about in Philadelphia. But like Allen Iverson, I was always like, when I was played basketball growing up, I was always really short. I was a point guard. You know, I was always really like small, so I always was like, see, here's this guy who's barely 6 foot that's lighting up the league, and like he was always the most inspiring person growing up for me, and like adversity was really big with him. So
what's funny, you kind of just answered my 2 last questions.
Keep going, yeah.
Well,
I talk about the Sixers all day.
No, so
I'm down for that.
I ask all my guests the same kind of last 4 questions.
Let's do it, yeah.
One of which is,
I'll change it up, though.
What living or dead Philadelphian do you most admire, and why? Like one that's well known.
Yeah.
You said AI, kind of, and then I also asked my guests favorite place to get a cheesesteak, but you just said you hate that question.
Oh, I hate it because I don't know. I just feel like when you listen to any national broadcast of Philadelphia, that's all it is. It's just like I really like Nick's roast beef. That's great. Like, but they don't talk about stuff like that. It's just Pat's or Geno's. Out of the 2, I like Geno's more. That's just my.
I don't think they're even in the top 6, either of them.
No. But like,
have you ever been to Paisano's?
No. Where's that at?
Maybe. So it's kind of near where you grew up in Fishtown, on 2nd and Girard.
Okay.
But it may have not been open back then.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
it's
probably a long time
the
ago.
best sandwich. It's not cheesesteak. The best sandwich spot in Philly.
What's it called?
Paisano's.
Okay. Yeah, I'll check that out, because like I love, like I said, it's not like I don't like the whole cheesesteaks and the sandwiches, because I like love food, but I just like every Monday Night Football and there's Geno's and then they show Rocky, and it's like, Philadelphia is like super historic.
That's the touristy shit. First of all, have you been to D'Alessandro's?
Yeah.
So that's 5 minutes from here.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's the most common answer on the podcast for the cheesesteak answer.
Oh, really? Is
Yeah.
it? Okay. Yeah, I've been there like a while, but I was there. But yeah, I get Allen Iverson would definitely be one, just because of relatability factor of like I remember just seeing him like just get bullied by people like Shaq or something in the finals, and I'd be like, but he just would constantly get up, and I would just always be like, that's crazy how he's like a doll. Like I don't know how he's getting up like that.
He almost embodies that fighter mentality more than Rocky does it for the city, and he's real.
100%. And I don't like the fact that he's had like a troubled after career thing, because I think it's tarnished some of it. But like I still respect him so much as a person, and what he did for the whole entire city, and kind of put the Sixers back on the map, because as you know, like there was that period like when Barkley left, and then it was like pretty crap for like a long time. That's why we got Iverson in the first place, having such a high pick. So Iverson is definitely one of them. And I always liked Chase Utley, because he just did his job and like never said much, and I always thought that was like really respectable. He didn't really like the spotlight, but he always did his job and never was one to like put anybody down. Just went out and like really competed, which I always thought was really good.
His whole thing was staying even keeled on the highs and the lows, saying he's the same.
Which is so important, especially in today's society. Just like don't overreact for things. And I think that's big. But
do you think Embiid will surpass AI in terms of the face of Philly basketball?
No, I don't think so.
Sixers basketball?
Only because I think Iverson, it's tough because Embiid's a huge star, literally. I think Iverson was like that global phenomenon, though, with the sleeve and the headband and the tattoos.
Changed the culture.
That wasn't
He was
a
the
thing.
culture.
Yeah, I mean, like tattoos and sleeves and things, that wasn't really a thing. So he kind of created a brand like Jordan did and like LeBron has. I think Embiid is a superstar, and I think he's going to be an all-time great. I don't think he's going to be a Allen Iverson level, because people fell in love. Look, it's harder to relate to a 7'1" guy than it is a 6 foot tall guy who is like fighting. Embiid is like an oak tree. Like I saw him at the draft, and it was just like I've never looked up that high. So I think Iverson was just so much more relatable, if that makes sense. Which I think
in the same way that kids relate to Steph Curry nowadays.
Yeah,
it's like,
he's a normal looking guy.
You could theoretically become them if you put in the work. You don't have to have the physical gifts.
Like Steph Curry is not jacked. He's not that tall. He looks like a baby, kind of. So you look at Steph Curry and if you're a kid, you go, I could be like him, which is important. You can't be 7'2" and have and be like Joel Embiid.
So I would love to have Iverson on the podcast. Can you give me? He's listening right now, so give him a little quick pitch about why he should come on Philly Famous Podcast.
Well, I mean, I think Mr. Iverson. No, I think it's important, and I think Iverson's always been someone that supports local stuff. So I think it's always important. Like I'm doing, this is a Philadelphia podcast. Like this is it's important to spread the love of the city that you kind of put on the map for basketball. So I mean, I think what would be better full circle than help somebody out, give somebody a lift, and start somebody's life in the right direction with podcasting. I mean, that would be huge.
That'd be huge. Yeah.
So, I mean, one simple act of him coming here for an hour could probably change your life forever. And I think to have that power is possible with him. And I think he absolutely should. And I actually think eventually he will be on the show, honestly. So get it done.
Well, thanks for that, Ryan. Before we wrap it up,
Yeah.
Is there anything that you want to, obviously your channel, anything you want to plug? Social media?
No, just rate his podcast 5 stars.
I appreciate that, man.
Very
selfless.
People don't realize how important that is, though. The ratings are pretty key for the algorithm for podcasting.
Well, it's funny. I was listening the other day to some other podcast, and they were talking about in the way it works in today, whether it's Uber ratings or restaurant ratings or podcast rating, anything below a 5-star means that you didn't like it.
Yeah.
And and you're doing a disservice. I'd rather, and most people would rather you not rate their stuff unless you're going to give it a full 5-star rating.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I've always, even on Amazon, when you see someone rate something 2 stars, I'm like, what a weird rating. Like, not even a 1 or a 5, but a 2. It's like,
well, I'm not saying it's the way it should be. Like,
I agree.
I think that 4 should have value.
Yeah, 100%.
And 3 should have value. But now if you put a 4 or 3, it means, okay, this wasn't good.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way we are now in society. But for this, you just said that, get a little 5 stars. That's all.
All right, Ryan. Well, thank you so much.
Of course.
This was a ton of fun, and I wish you luck with do you have a 1 million subscriber thing going on soon? Are you trying to get to a certain goal?
Not really. No, I've never been super big about goals. I'm for instance, just a quick thing, about 2 years ago, I wanted to start getting, my goal for now was to get 1,000 likes per tweet by 2018. That was my goal. I wanted every tweet to get 1,000. Now they're getting 4,000 to 5,000 a tweet, which is great. So those are the goals I want. I try to focus on the actual big number because there's so many things now fluctuating of getting rid of inactive accounts. You just never know what's going on. So I try not to hold too much of a candle to that.
So this is a little bit early, but do you have a New Year's resolution? I haven't even thought about mine, to be honest.
I don't know. I mean, I told myself that I would get to more Flyers games this year, if that's even a resolution, but I've been so pissed off with that team. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know if you like hockey or anything, but that was that's my sports resolution. Go to some Flyers games, even though they're struggling, support the team.
If you look around the room, I have everything Philly except for hockey.
Okay. I mean, that seems to be the thing anyway in Philly these days. But yeah, go to more hockey games, and I want to get back into running more. I used a couple years ago, I would run all the time. I got my stamina up really well, and then 6 months ago, I just stopped, and then I jeweled for a month.
Jesus.
What in the world? So I feel I just took 90 years off my health and my life. So I'd like to run again and counteract all the jeweling that went down.
God. All right, Ryan. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Ton of fun.
Thanks for having me.